Now, a couple people, Tornavis is one of them, pointed out some cool ways to develop your own font. So at the top here, a font that you can actually use on a computer. I'll get to the links that people pointed out in a second. So here is a demonstration of that font, but you're probably more distracted by the chest of John Eric Hexam. I'm not sure exactly what this was used for. It might have been something within a class, I think. I don't know. Turnavis, if you feel like you can share the backstory behind this particular photo and application. If not, that's fine too. All right, you're raising your hand. Tornavis, I just unmuted you. How are you? And tell us the backstory of what you have here.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
No need to
I'm going to be
apologize.
doing a conference paper on very soon, very close, in a couple of days actually. It's on time travel television shows, and one of them starred John Eric Hexam.
Okay.
And the point about the conference, that paper, is that one of the reasons why the show succeeded was about the fact that he was rather sexy. He's deceased now. Anyway, so the point was that the matter of John Eric Hexam's chest actually is important to understanding the appeal of that series back when it was on TV in 1982.
Gotcha.
So that's it. That's all it is.
Very, very interesting. And that's a cool combination of the verbal and the visual right there. Tornavis, while I've got you here, would you be willing to describe, let me just pull up, I think the service, what you used to create that font was called this font generator here at yourfonts.com.
Yes.
Would you describe just how easy this process was to use, or how you found that?
It's actually very, very easy, and that's why I like it. Even though it's not necessarily the best one, it's the one that's the easiest. So you print the template, which is basically a grid, and it tells you which letters to print or to write within those little squares. And once you fill them on and you make sure that they're at the right angles and in the right spot, you scan it, you upload it, and within a few minutes you have a font of your handwriting. It's amazingly easy.
That's so cool. I've been wanting to do...
And it's cheap too, as in inexpensive.
Right. Do they actually charge anything for this, or is this a free service? I guess the free preview.
It's not a free service, but it's it's not very expensive. It costs more to have all the fonts with the accents, but if you're an Anglophone, you just do the first page, and it's actually, I think it's $5.
Oh,
and
yeah,
if you want more with the accents and all the stuff that other international people use, then I think it's a little bit more.
Okay. That's very cool. I've been thinking for the past 6 months or so. And I guess probably once, so Mike Rohde, I think you mentioned using, Mike Rohde came out with his own font that he used for creating his two books.
I used to use it.
Oh, gotcha. And when I saw that, that just got me thinking, like, wow, what does it take to just create your own font? I thought it was going to have to be some much more labor-intensive process. So it's cool to see that there are affordable services like these.
It used to be like 10 years ago. It was much, much harder. You had to actually go to someone who was a font designer, and then it was much more expensive. The very first font I did, which was almost 10 years ago, was with one of font designer, and it cost me $80.
Nice, yeah, 80 going down from 80 to 5 sounds pretty darn nice.
Pretty much.
So I think if anybody else, I'm gonna play around with this within the next week. So I think our challenge is not related to fonts; it's related to layout for this next week. But if you want to join in and test out creating your own font, feel free to do that. I might report back in next week's webinar. Great, Tornavis, thank you. Anything else you'd like to share or talk about while I've got you on?
No, but thank you for hearing me.
All right, thanks, Tornavis. Appreciate it. Okay, so so we saw this one service, which I'll be testing out to see how it goes to create your own font. earlier, I think just earlier today, Stefan also shared his font that he created, which is very cool as well. And he used a service called paintfont.com. It looks like here is a free service to easily create your own fonts. Stefan, I think you're here today in the webinar. If you feel like it, if you feel like sharing what your experience was like using this font generator, shoot a hand up, and we can hear from you firsthand about how that went. But if you're not able to, wherever you are, that's totally fine too. Gotcha. No mic today, but it looks like it is free. So there's another one to test out. You can start with that one if you want, since that's a free one. Similar process, it looks like. Essentially print out a template, fill them out, scan them in, and then upload them. I might be testing out, depending on how, I'll be curious to see if there is much tweaking once you scan an image in, if it's worth playing around with the contrast and the exposure, all that sort of stuff. There's some, I kind of have a standard format now for when I scan in some handwritten text or from images to be able to kind of make the image pop. And then also to, if I'm going to digitize it, vectorize it, I kind of have a process for that as well. I'll be sharing that process. I think I mentioned before, I'll be doing a bonus 10th module, kind of like a behind the scenes, just to show you the tools I use to create all the sketches, and even how I make the videos and how I went about planning the course, all that sort of stuff. I'll share that with you when we're once we've got all the modules up. So Stefan is saying it, yeah, same process, takes you about 10 minutes in the scanner. So this is very cool. Thank you guys for pointing out these awesome resources. I love learning about things like this from you guys. It's really cool. Another resource, not to create your own font, but that has a huge repository of fonts that you can download. This one was shared by Melaine, so thank you, Melaine, for pointing this out. It's called dafont.com, and I just went to the newest fonts. And it seems like they, I don't know if they focus specifically on kind of hand-drawn fonts, but that's what it looks like, at least with these newer ones that are more handwritten. So to talk about like how you might use fonts like these or fonts that you create for yourself, I guess Tornavisa's example was perfect. If you are creating a presentation or putting together a document, you know, anything that falls into that category of idea sharing, and you want to save time by not having to write everything out by hand and then scan it in and put it where you need to put it. This process of creating your own font will, one, save you a lot of time, and two, it has the same effect for the way that the audience will then perceive that text and those images. Only if they look, you know, really closely at the text might they see that, like, oh, all of those T's look the same. You didn't actually handwrite that all out. But I think few people will notice that, and even if they do, I don't think that takes away from the handwritten kind of a homemade approach to that type of text. So Stefan was saying that the problem for me was more to be consistent in writing the letters in boxes aligned properly. Yeah, I imagine there's a bit of technique that might take some practice or repetition to make sure you're filling out those templates correctly. And I'm curious, hopefully to have some direction. I'll read things more closely, but I'm curious what these lines indicate. Oh, I bet that's for, you know, like upper and lower case, like a D versus a P, where your lines go. That's probably what those marks refer to.